Thank you, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. So my name is Kevin Tribe. I'm a graduate admissions counselor in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Northwestern. Today, I am joined by my amazing panelists who are going to talk about their student life experience on campus as undergrads. So before we begin, we're going to start with some introductions. So like I said, my name is Kevin Tribe. I'm a graduate admissions counselor at Northwestern. I'm a graduate student in the School of Education Social Policy, getting my master's in higher education administration and policy. I am from Chicago, Illinois, and probably my favorite place on campus is going to be the Lakeville. It's just a really great space to get great views of campus, to take a walk, take a run. You get great views of the city of Chicago as well. So with that, I'm going to start introducing my student panelists, and they're going to introduce themselves, their name, hometown, what year they are in school, what they studied, and then their favorite place on campus as well. So I'm going to start off with Diana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana. I am a graduate of the class of 2020, so I just graduated this past June. I'm from Chicago, and I studied learning sciences in the School of Education and Social Policy. And my favorite place on campus is Annenberg Hall, which is the home of the School of Education and Social Policy. And I will pass it to Cameryn.
My name is Cameryn. Like Diana, I graduated this past June. I studied psychology in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. And my favorite place on campus, it's kind of, not everybody has access to it, but I used to work in the athletics department. And so I would work in their new field house. And they have these really large windows that overlook the lake. And it was just beautiful, especially in the morning around sunrise. But yeah, so I'm going to pass it on to John.
Hi guys, my name's John. I am going to be a fourth year from Lake Forest, Illinois, so one of the northern suburbs of Chicago. I study chemical engineering in McCormick with minors in economics and computer science. And one of my favorite places on campus has got to be the Kellogg Global Hub, home to the business school. It's a beautiful glass building. They have a nice fireplace you can sit by, wonderful place to do work. I'm going to pass it off to Janea.
Hi everyone, I'm Janea. I'm a third year studying journalism in Medill. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and that's where I am right now. And one of my favorite places on campus would have to be the Lakeville. There's a specific little crevice behind some trees in the Lakeville, and it's kind of like a cliffed off area, and you can just sit and do and just get views of Lake Michigan.
Awesome, thank you. So before we get started, with the students kind of sharing their experience on campus, I'm just going to give a quick general overview of Northwestern, the academics, the admissions portion, and then financial aid as well. I'll touch on at the end. So the first thing I want to say is Northwestern is located in Evanston, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago. And what is great about its location is that it really does have the best of both worlds. And what I mean by that is you do have the small town college feel of Evanston. So it has coffee shops, restaurants, grocery stores, doctor's offices, whatever you would need on campus or in a college town, it has. But what's great is that you're very close to Chicago. And what Northwestern does have is we call the campus shuttle, which goes from downtown Evanston and the Evanston campuses. So it has multiple stops on campus, but it takes students also to downtown Chicago as well. It's free for students. It has Wi-Fi in the bus, so if you need to get work done along the way, you can. But it's great. It leaves you right in the heart of downtown Chicago on Michigan Avenue, so you can explore the city, take advantage of the academic, professional, and social opportunities that it has to offer. So along with that, I want to kind of talk about the diversity of students on campus. So the undergraduate student population at Northwestern is about 8,000 students, and it represents over 75 countries from around the world. It's really great because here at Northwestern, we believe you're going to learn as much from your peers as you will your faculty members during your time on campus. And so we really want to have and promote a diverse student population in regards to race, ethnicity, gender, culture, religion, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really great, and it's something we are really proud of here at Northwestern. So kind of shifting towards academics, the main thing to note is that Northwestern has 6 schools. We have our Beanan School of Music, we have our McCormick School of Engineering, we have our School of Communication, we have our School of Education and Social Policy, which is the smallest school on campus. We have our Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, which is actually our largest college. and we have our Medill School of Journalism. And so what's really great is we want to promote student, student interests and student academic, pursuits throughout all the 6 schools. So what I mean by that is when you select your home school with your major, that doesn't mean you're stuck in that school for the next 3 to 4 years. What we really want to highlight here about our 6 schools is that Northwestern does offer a lot of opportunities across the 6 schools. So students can take electives, distribution requirements in other schools as well, but you also have the opportunity to double major across 6 schools as across the schools as well. So about 70% of our undergraduate student population actually double majors. And it's something we really want to promote the academic interests of students. We really want to allow them that flexibility. And one way by doing that is having our quarter system. So the quarter system is a little bit unique to Northwestern than other typical colleges. So I'm going to talk through the logistics first. So what happens is, our quarter systems are fall, winter, spring, and summer. And so as undergraduates, you're expected to be on campus for the fall, winter, and spring quarters only. Summer quarter is for you to, if you want to have a summer job, if you want to do an internship, if you want to research what's new on Netflix, that's totally fine. Just note that as undergraduates, you are expected to be on campus for the fall, winter, and spring quarters. And what's really great and what really highlights that flexibility with the quarter system is that you're going to take more classes than you would at a typical semester school. So for example, at a typical semester school, you're going to take about 5 classes per semester. 2 semesters per academic year means you're taking about 10 classes per academic year. But at Northwestern, under the quarter system, we expect you to take about 4 classes per quarter. And if you're on campus for the 3 quarters, fall, winter, and spring, you're going to take approximately 12 classes an academic year, which means over the course of your 4-year academic career, you're going to take approximately 8 more classes than you would at a semester school, which is really great because we want students to explore their academic interests all across, our 6 schools, explore different majors and minors and certificates. So we have over 150 majors, minors, and certificates available for students all across the 6 schools. And kind of how this works is we like to think of your academic career at Northwestern in buckets. So the first bucket is going to be classes that are your distribution requirements, and that is going to be the liberal arts education aspect of Northwestern. So those are required classes chosen by the academic leaders of those schools that each student has to take. But what's great about the distribution requirements at Northwestern is that it's not limited to 1 or 2 options. You can take so many different classes that will count towards distribution requirements. So you can find a requirement that appeals to you and your academic interests. So that's our first bucket. Our second bucket is going to be the classes for your majors, your minors, and your certificates. So if you choose to double major, that bucket might be a little bit bigger, but approximately 1/3 of your classes are going to be geared towards your majors, your minors, and certificates. So a major is going to be anywhere between 10 to 15 classes, depending on the academic program. A minor is going to be anywhere from 6 to 9. And then the certificates are very specific niche academic fields. They can those are going to be anywhere from 3 to 5. So it's really great. We really promote student diversity in regards to academics. We really want them to pursue their interests as well. So that's kind of why we see the quarter system as a way to allow students to grow academically. And so now I'm going to shift quickly towards the admissions and the application and financial aid portion. So the first thing I will say is that we accept one of 2 applications. So that's either the common application or the coalition application. Either one is fine. And so the one thing we really want to highlight in this little panel here is that for this upcoming for this upcoming admission cycle, we are actually going to be test optional. So we know that testing, is, very chaotic right now, that, we know that you're preparing for those SATs and ACTs, but, things outside of your control might not let you take those tests. And we completely understand. So we're doing a test optional policy that you do not have to report your scores as well. And so with that, financial aid applications are going to be as part of your application as well. And so with that, we really want to highlight the financial aid on campus because Northwestern really does a great job. And so Northwestern will meet 100% of your demonstrated need in a loan-free package. So how this works is you're going to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile So that's the FAFSA and CSS profile. And what you're going to do is that's going to give the financial aid office a good background into your family income situation, and it's going to allow the financial aid office to create what we call an EFC, or expected family contribution. So that is a expected number. The financial aid office expects the family to contribute each academic year towards tuition. But what's great about Northwestern's financial aid policy is that Northwestern's going to cover the rest of tuition, room and board, and a loan-free package. So for example, if your EFC is $5,000, Northwestern's going to cover the rest of tuition, room and board, and a loan-free package. It's a really great opportunity for students to partake. So that's kind of just a general overview of Northwestern as a whole. So I just want to quickly get started here, and I'm going to turn it over to John. And I want to ask John, what was your first couple of days on campus? If you can kind of walk us through the Wildcat Welcome and how that kind of welcomed you to campus.
Sure. So Wildcat Welcome is how you start every year, or start your first year at Northwestern. It's a really great time where you get to meet all of your new classmates, kind of get to know the community and the people. You get assigned a peer advisor the summer before you start at Northwestern, and a peer advisory group, or a PA group. For me, that was a group of like 9 to 10 other students who all, for me and McCormick, were studying biomedical engineering and chemical engineering. In the first week on campus, there was a ton of programming for us. There were these things called True Northwestern discussions that we had about 4 or 5 of, where you'd go kind of talk about diversity and inclusion, you'd talk about sexual health, you'd talk about stuff like that. Also, as well as giving you kind of an intro to choosing your classes, figuring out what college life is like, planning your schedule. My whole incoming class got to go see Hamilton for free as a part of our Wildcat Welcome, which was super exciting. The other people on the call weren't quite so lucky, unless they were PAs, of course. But Wildcat Welcome was a really great time, kind of a great intro to college, a great first week. And then by the time school starts, you're kind of all settled in. You've had a nice week of kind of getting used to the pace and rigor Northwestern, and you can kind of get off to the races.
Awesome, thank you. So you kind of mentioned about this very quickly, the rigor of Northwestern, and I want to ask Diana, is the culture at Northwestern more cutthroat or collaborative? How would you describe it in your experience?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, especially going into a new space and being at a place that is as academically rigorous as Northwestern. So one of the greatest things that I found during my time at Northwestern is that the culture is super, super collaborative. And I'm sure Janea and Cameron and John can agree. Especially because a lot of the students who are at Northwestern and your peers in your classes, you're all kind of going through a similar journey throughout your Northwestern experience, having hard classes, having some packed schedules some quarters. So it never feels, at least for me, it has never felt like you're fighting against other students or like ever clawing your way to the top, so to speak. And I've always found that people are super willing to help. And there's a lot of people that you'll find that are in your corner, especially when it comes to faculty and peers in your classes.
Sweet, thank you. So now I'm going to ask Janea kind of to share her experience finding her home on campus. If you can kind of walk us through that and kind of share your experience as an undergraduate at Northwestern.
Yeah, so when I first got to campus, I was really nervous about like finding friends and like finding spaces where I fit in, but luckily like that didn't really take long. Like during Wildcat Welcome, I met some of my friends that I'm still really good friends with today, whether through my PA group or through my residential hall. And I think like having really good friends starting off at Northwestern really helped me to find spaces that I felt welcomed in. But I think also for me, finding identity-based spaces was also really helpful for me to be a part of FMO, which is a Black student union at Northwestern. And I think like being a part of those sort of spaces made me feel much more connected to the community. And I think just meeting people in those spaces also made me see from familiar faces around campus, whether it was in my classes or just like walking around campus. And I think that was also really helpful. And even as I like continue throughout Northwestern, I'm still constantly meeting new people and making more connections like through classes or through extracurriculars. And I think everyone is, especially your first year, everyone is dealing with being away from home and kind of adjusting to a new pace of learning and just a new like environment in general. And so I think people are definitely really welcoming, and people just want to connect in the same way that you do.
So thank you for sharing. So my next question is for Cameryn, and this comes from a student. And I want to know, what do you think the Northwestern community most values?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think it kind of also pulls from what Janea was just talking about, and what Diana was just talking about. But I think the idea of really valuing creating spaces for yourself and for others, drawing from other people's experiences, learning those kinds of things, that very collaborative nature, I think is one of the main things that Northwestern students value. And I heard it put one way by another Northwestern student that I know, that one of the things that makes Northwestern students unique is the fact that we're just so passionate across the board. So there's so much diversity and variety of academic interests, identities, experiences, those kinds of things. But the things that really make us similar across the board in the student population is the fact that whatever we're interested in, we're passionate about. And so what that looks like is students are really valuing finding spaces for them, making spaces for others that are coming after them, learning from other people, diversifying their viewpoint, all of these kinds of things. And so I think that's one of the most valued things about Northwestern within the student community.
Great, thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask Diana if you can kind of talk about LGBTQ student life on campus and kind of share what you have seen on campus during your time.
Yeah, so it's really easy to find your home on campus if you are looking at spaces that are identity-based. So we have an organization called Rainbow Alliance, which is for LGBTQ plus identifying students at Northwestern, as well as the Gender and Sexuality Resource Center, which is an actual like kind of organization, like institution at Northwestern. So I found that LGBTQ kind of centered organizations are super accepting, as well as other organizations that talk about gender and sexuality. So I think it is really a place that is accepting of students and provides resources for students of all identities. And Northwestern does a really good job of providing those spaces where you can bond with other people through your identities.
Thank you for sharing. So now I'm going to turn to John and ask John, what is an experience that you felt that you could have only had at Northwestern?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. One experience I felt that I could have only had at Northwestern was my sophomore year. I was taking a thermodynamics class taught by a professor in the chemical engineering department. It was actually his first class he had taught at Northwestern. So me and two of my other chemical engineering friends talked to him after the class had ended. We were able to join his research lab like right there on the spot. And he's like, all right, you guys got a spot. And it was super, super awesome. I've been in his lab now for over a year and a half. Super awesome guy. His name is Jeff Richards. He's kind of like a dad, kind of like a friend. At the same time, he's a mentor. And the fact that in one of my first major specific classes as a student here, I had access to a professor who was ready and willing to admit undergrads into his lab and kind of do some research was super exciting for me. And the fact that I could do this at a school is great at Northwestern, where you can take a bus down to the Big Ten championship game and watch Big Ten football is kind of amazing and a great combination of things.
That sounds like a great time. So now I'm going to turn to Cameryn and shift a little bit more back to the academic side. How has the quarter system enhanced your college experience?
I think one of the, first and foremost, basically, one of the ways that it benefited extremely from the quarter system, just the fact that you get to take way more classes by the time you graduate. And I know, Kevin, you kind of talked about the numbers earlier, but for me, that's been very important because it's allowed me to explore interests, whether it was trying to figure out what I wanted to major in or just because it was something that I was interested in, but just not enough to major or minor in. I've had a lot of really cool experiences in non-major classes that I've pretty much only been able to get because of the fact that I can fit more classes into my schedule due to the quarter system. Just like a little background, I used to be a biology major and I did that until like halfway through my sophomore year. But then I switched to psychology, and kind of like the flexibility of the quarter system is what even allowed me to start playing around with different majors as far as like trying intro to like psych, intro to soc, those kinds of things, classes here and there, to really kind of test what I was really interested in and passionate about. And so that's one of the main ways I think that the quarter system has really allowed me to just kind of explore myself academically, but even kind of beyond that. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So I'm going to quickly turn to Janea and ask about, what kind of clubs and organizations are you involved in on campus, and kind of how has that shaped your Northwestern experience?
Yeah, so I'm involved in a couple different clubs. I write for the Daily Northwestern, which is our daily newspaper on campus, and I am a journalism major, so that is like connected to my major, but my other clubs that I'm involved in aren't really as academic related. I'm a part of A&R Productions, which is an entertainment group on campus, so we book a lot of speakers and concerts that happen on campus, which is really great club to be a part of. It's really cool to just like see how excited people get when like a certain artist is coming, and to like be in charge of that is something that I'm really thankful for, and something that's just super fun. And it's really a really great like way to meet people too in the clubs. And there are also like volunteer organizations that I've been a part of as well. I'm a part of Supplies for Dreams, which is a mentorship program with Northwestern students mentor CPS in Chicago public schools. And that's been a really great experience for me, not only just learning more about Chicago and the Chicago public school system, but it's also been really great for me to kind of reflect back on my own academic experience and my own experience growing up, and like trying to see what sort of things I wish I had. And I think there are tons and tons of clubs at Northwestern. There are like almost 500 clubs. And so there's really something for everyone. And I think clubs are a great opportunity to kind of step away from academics and a way to kind of delve into things that you're more passionate, like a dance group or an acting group. And, even there's even like cooking groups. And so I think there's really an organization for everyone. And yeah, it's just a great way to like meet friends and to connect to your passions too.
Thank you for sharing. Those are really great opportunities and really great clubs. So this question is going to be for everybody. So to put you on the spot, what is one thing you wish you knew before applying to Northwestern? So I'll say that again. What's one thing you wish you knew before applying to Northwestern? And I'm going to start with Diana.
Thank you. I knew you were going to start with me. So one thing that I wish I knew before I got to Northwestern was how approachable the faculty is. So John talked about this a little bit already, but when I got to classes, and like challenges come naturally with any sort of academic system, particularly at Northwestern. And so when I started encountering these challenges and kind of obstacles in like my learning, I was like very initially afraid of talking to my professors, wanting to go to office hours. So one thing I wish I knew is the approachability of professors at Northwestern, and how easy it is to find help, and all you need to do is ask for it. I'll pass it on to Cameryn.
I also knew you were going to call on me next. I think one thing that I wish I knew before I came to Northwestern, and even just in the first like couple of years that I was at Northwestern, is just how like important and helpful and meaningful it is to get involved in a lot of things like student organizations and stuff that are meaningful to me, as well as how like easy it is to get involved. I think I underestimated just how many opportunities there were to explore different interests that I already had, or even just build new interests, learn about new things through clubs or events that were put on, all of these kinds of things. And I think later on in my college career at Northwestern, once I started really taking advantage of those kinds of things, they really helped to shape my mindset, my experiences, just people that I meet. And it's been really meaningful for me. And that's been a very meaningful part of my journey at Northwestern. And so if I was kind of like in the mind space to know that I want to take advantage of that as soon as I came to Northwestern, I could have made like way more friends, had way more experiences. So that's something that I wish I knew before. I'm going to call on Janea.
I think one thing I wish I knew before coming into Northwestern was that I didn't have to have it all figured out. I think the summer before I came to Northwestern, I remember I got an email about like classes that I could take, and they kind of give you a chart about like your 4-year plan, but it's just like recommendations of like classes related to your major that people tend to take throughout their time at Northwestern, and I kind of just jumped on it. And so I planned out all 4 years. And I thought, okay, this is exactly how things are going to go. I came in wanted to be a cognitive science double major. I took my first cognitive science class and I didn't like it at all. And so I think coming in, I was just like kind of really set on like following through with like going out for all these clubs or like really just like sticking to a plan. But as I've gone through my years, I've realized that there's so much that can change. And I think in Northwestern, your advisors are also really helpful in helping you be flexible, like others have talked about on this panel. But I think coming in, you don't really have to know exactly what you're going to do. And even as you go throughout, you can constantly like change your major and just like, figure out things as they come. And I'll pass it off to John.
So I agree with literally everything that's been said so far, especially what Diana said about faculty being super accessible. And to kind of elaborate on that, the students are also incredibly accessible. I know Cameron talked a little bit about how collaborative Northwestern is, but that really extends to the students. If you're in a class, my first math class I took at Northwestern, I didn't do very well in. It's probably the worst math class I've had since like freshman year of high school. And I kind of put it all on myself. I studied on my own in my room, and it wasn't a great experience for me. And since then, I've realized that Northwestern students love to study in groups. They love to help you with things. There's lots of peer tutors on campus. So like, don't be afraid to ask people to study with you, to help you if they get it and you don't. Some of my favorite memories now have been like late nights grinding with a bunch of my chemical engineering like compatriots in the library with like a huge problem set due tomorrow. Doesn't seem like fun, but for some reason I look up on it fondly. The students are definitely super collaborative, and I wish I knew that a little sooner on.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. That's really great insight into your Northwestern experience. So I'm going to throw it back to John and kind of ask him about engineering. So I want to know, like, is it theory-based or applied-based? And how easy is it for engineering students to major and minor in other schools?
Yeah, it's a great question. First, I'm going to take the first part of your question first. Engineering does a really good job of balancing both the theory and the practice. One of the first classes you take at Northwestern as an engineer is called Design Thinking and Communication, or DTC. You take this class, you get partnered up with a real world client. So I worked with a Shed Aquarium my freshman year and helped design an underwater video camera system to help research fish migrations in Door County. So I got to go to the Shed Aquarium for free to meet with people. It was awesome. But at the same time, there's lots of really awesome theory you can do. That's some of the research I'm doing on campus, and some of the classes are a lot more theory-based. Then to the next part of Kevin's question about kind of minoring and doing stuff across schools, I had no idea what I wanted to do until about this year. So I have two minors. I'm minoring in economics and computer science. Economics is in Weinberg. Computer science is kind of split Weinberg and McCormick. And I was thinking about switching to an economics major as recently as last summer. So summer before my junior year. It's super easy to do across schools. Course system is awesomely flexible. You can kind of make these decisions as late as the end of your sophomore year. And I could have even decided kind of at the end of this last fall. And as you pick up additional minors and certificates and majors, you'll get extra advising for each one of those, which is super helpful. So I went to people in the economics department who I hadn't really taken classes with and said, hey, I want to take some classes. I want to maybe do a minor. What do you think? And they were super helpful in guiding me throughout the process. Just because you're in engineering and there's a lot of core classes and kind of it's a little more rigorous does not mean at all that you're pigeonholed into that school. Definitely worthwhile to explore the other schools Northwestern has.
Great, thank you for sharing. And speaking of different schools, we're going to shift to Janea and Medill. And I'm just kind of curious, like, were you involved in your high school's newspaper since you said you were involved in the Daily Northwestern? And if so, do you think that made entering Medill a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, Kevin, I was involved in my high school's newspaper, but I don't think that gave me like a significant advantage coming into Medill. There are a lot of my really close friends in Medill and a lot of people I look up to just like got involved in journalism when they came into college. And so I think Medill does a really good job. When you first come in, and like acclimating you to journalism and like the AP style, which is a significant part of journalism. And your first year, you just take classes a part of the 201 sequence. And so those are kind of building the fundamentals of journalism, and everyone is held to the same standards, and no one is expected to know more about anything than anyone else. And I think that in those classes, they can be challenging sometimes just because it's a lot of new information. Even for me, and I did journalism coming in, and I think there's just, Medill does a really good job at making everyone feel like they're on the same playing field. And I don't think that there's one experience that would be better for Medill than another.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And sticking with the theme of academics, Cameron, I'm kind of curious. You talked about changing majors, and was that a difficult process or was it pretty flexible?
I think both. I think it was difficult because, and Janea kind of mentioned this with what she wished she knew before she came to Northwestern. It was difficult because I had a picture of what I wanted to do with my life. And so like I knew why I was getting a biology major. I knew what I wanted to do with that after college. I knew where I wanted to go with that career-wise. And so on like a more personal level, it was difficult just kind of coming to grips with it's okay if this isn't what you end up doing because you don't actually like it, you know? But I think as far as the logistics of it, it was extremely flexible. Switching my major was pretty much just like signing a paper and giving it to somebody else to approve. And as far as figuring out what I wanted to switch to, like I kind of mentioned earlier, it was just a combination of, I had already, for like my distribution requirements, I was already taking a lot of kind of like social science classes. And so I'd already kind of had a taste of what these disciplines were like and what I was kind of leaning towards and not leaning towards. And so the flexibility of the quarter system allowed for me to already kind of have a picture of what might I be interested in if it's not biology. And then also academic support wise, like I spoke to a lot of faculty members as well as my just academic advisor for Weinberg in general. And they gave me a lot of different options. They suggested a lot of different classes that I could choose to look into. And they were very adamant about reminding me that I have time to figure it out. So as far as logistics, it was extremely flexible. So.
Thank you. So kind of shifting towards academics outside the classroom, I'm going to turn it over to Diana, and I want to kind of ask her if she can share her undergraduate research experience, kind of walk us through that whole process and, just explain what did you learn from it, what was your project about, and ultimately, how easy is it to do research at Northwestern?
Yeah, so one of the biggest parts about undergraduate research is that Northwestern is obviously a research institution, and so it provides a lot of funding to just undergraduate research. So every year, undergraduate research gets about $3.5 million allocated to the program, which means that research is one, super accessible, and two, it can look like anything you want it to. So I mentioned I'm in the School of Education and Social Policy. So my research experience didn't look like what your traditional research lab experience would look like, with like test tubes and like wearing a lab coat and stuff. So for my undergraduate research experience, I was in a class called Cognition and Context, and I really liked what my professor was teaching that quarter. So after the class, I went up to him, I said, hey, I'd love to learn more about this. I'd love to learn more about out of school learning and kind of informal learning experiences. And I was able to join his lab. And I worked there for 2 years, and I learned a lot, and I made a lot of great connections and kind of got a glimpse into the world of academia. And so one of the things that was really awesome about that is, and what a lot of students can also relate to, is that your professors can also be your advisors in your research, because a lot of professors are doing their research outside of when they're not teaching. So undergraduate research can also look like getting a summer undergraduate research grant. And so students can pursue their research full-time over the summer without having to worry about the financial implications of not taking courses during the summer and kind of living on your own in Evanston while you're pursuing this research. So it is one, accessible again, and just like very interdisciplinary. So you can focus on a bunch of different things, and it's really easy to find your research position. And I know people who have gotten their positions just by writing a proposal and saying like, hey, I really like what you're doing. And it doesn't have to relate to the thing that you are studying. That's one of the really big things that I want to emphasize, because if you are a math major and you want to focus on something that is dealing with like the stars or something, it is really accessible and very easy to find a position that you want, even if it's not exactly what you're studying.
Great, Thank you for sharing. And kind of, you mentioned URGs, and I'm going to turn it over to John if he can kind of explain what a URG is, the process of applying for one, and kind of your experience with that.
Yeah. I haven't ever had a URG, but I have the distinct pleasure of being almost friends at this point with the director of undergraduate research at Northwestern, who's a professor of mine in DTC my very first year, which is super cool. I'm actually meeting with them next week to talk about life and advice and stuff like that. But the URG is a $3,500 stipend you get to conduct research over the summer in Evanston. That pretty much covers the cost of living, groceries, that kind of thing while you're there. To apply for it, you apply the fall. I think before the summer you're looking to do research. I think it extends into the winter as well. You write a proposal, and you basically, the undergraduate research department is super awesome at Northwestern. They'll work with you to get your proposal approved. The director, his name's Peter Savetta, he often says his favorite thing to tell students is, we have money, take it. Like, they have $3.5 million, as we said. They have a thing called the Circumnavigator Grant, which is a grant, the only stipulation is you have to travel to 5 countries on 3 continents during the course of your research, and so it's a $10,000 grant. Last year, they give it to 1 student a year. Last year, they had 6 students apply. So they want people to apply for these programs. They have them there for you. And it's really, really easy. They'll work with you the whole step of the way, find you a faculty advisor who's doing research in something you're interested in. Like Diana said, it's just writing a proposal, finding someone, they'll connect you with a professor. It's a really awesome program.
Great, thank you. So I'm kind of going to shift gears now towards community service and open it up to anybody of our student panelists, if they want to kind of share their experience with community service. It doesn't have to be Evanston specific. It can be anywhere, you had community service experience during your time at Northwestern. So I'm going to start with Janea.
Yeah, so when I first came to Northwestern, I got involved in Alternative Student Breaks, which is a service learning group at Northwestern that during our breaks from school, we go on service learning trips across the country. I've been to St. Louis, as well as Louisville and Madison, Wisconsin. And on those trips, we volunteer at different organizations, and we're able to kind of like learn a lot about the community that we're in, as well as learning about the organization that we are volunteering at. And so in Louisville, I volunteered with the Kentucky Refugee Ministries, and what they did was to help with refugee placement and to help people who were seeking asylum here in the United States. And so we learned about the Louisville community and how receptive they were of refugees and all that they did to help integrate refugees within the community. And we also got to help out with the services that the organization was providing. So I helped to teach an English second language class, which was really cool. We also set up a house for a refugee family that was arriving in Louisville. And so those are really an easy way to get involved in community service and service learning. And those trips are around like a couple $100s, but there is financial aid available. So anyone who wants to be a part of ASB can join.
Thank you. And that sounds like an amazing opportunity. I know Diana has some community service experience as well, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, so when I started at Northwestern my freshman year, I joined an organization called Special Olympics. And so essentially my group, I was an instructor for the swimming area of Special Olympics. And so every week, once a week, me and a group of students, we would rent a van from Northwestern and we would drive down to the Evanston YMCA. And we would be instructors in helping athletes with Down syndrome just prepare for the Special Olympics, which is an actual event that happens over the summer, and just train for swimming. And it was a really, really awesome opportunity. It's a really cool way to get outside of the Northwestern bubble, to get out of campus, to meet really awesome people who are passionate about the same thing you are, and also just give back to the Evanston community.
Thank you for sharing. And I know Northwestern does have a service opportunity that's pretty much a Northwestern tradition called Dance Marathon. It's very popular among the undergrads. So I'm going to ask John to kind of explain what Dance Marathon is, how students can get involved, and how it helps the community around Northwestern.
Yeah, I did Dance Marathon my first year at Northwestern. It's a really awesome organization. I think it's our largest club on campus. Every year, about 1,500 to 2,000 of Northwestern's 8,000 undergrads take part in Dance Marathon, and they dance for 30 hours straight in a tent behind the North Student Union Center. Last year, they raised like $1.3 million. They choose two charities every year for that money to go to. The first is kind of a Chicago area charity. I forgot what it was last year. That's my bad. But one of the other charities they choose is kind of always is a secondary charity. It's the Evanston Community Fund. So that money is directly going to the Chicago community and the Evanston community to kind of better that. You can get involved your whole year. It's super easy to get involved. You raise money by asking friends and family to donate. You can. So you see people outside football games wearing a yellow apron and a little can and collecting money for DM that way. That's a super awesome organization. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Dancing 30 hours straight in a tent is a lot. It's a lot of really sweaty people in a tight area for a long time, but an experience that I really love having and will look upon fondly.
Great. Thank you for sharing. That's a great, I know it's a really big Northwestern tradition, even if it is dancing for 30 hours straight. So I'm going to throw it back to you, John. If you can kind of talk about Greek life on campus, and if anybody else wants to jump in after John is done, feel free to, and kind of share your thoughts and experiences.
Sure. So Northwestern, I think, is just under 40% Greek. That's a pretty big number, but I think it kind of is the more important number is I think 17% of the students live on campus, live in Greek housing. And that's kind of the amount of, I think, Greek life you feel. I am involved in Greek life, and I think that 40% number kind of basically says that you'll know people in it, you'll know people who aren't in it, and it's kind of up to you what direction you want to go. For me personally, it's provided a great community of friends and a network beyond that. A lot of people, even for a career purpose, a lot of people who currently have jobs who I can talk to and ask for advice in life, as well as a great group of friends to kind of hang out with and spend my time with. There's also a lot of charity work that they do, but Greek life is definitely not the only social thing on campus. Student clubs, I think, are a much bigger part of Northwestern's campus, and actually Greek life, you can't join an organization until after the fall of your first year has elapsed. It's a delayed rush, and I think it's never your kind of only or biggest thing that you're involved with on campus. I really like it, but it's not for everyone. The social community at Northwestern also revolves a lot around our theater and performing arts communities. Our residential colleges, our themed living options on campus also comprise a huge portion of social life. So really, Greek life is there if you're looking for it, but if you're not looking for it, it's something you don't have to experience at all. Feel free to kind of chime in, anyone else, if you have any other opinions on it.
Yeah, I think kind of building off of that, one of the really cool things about Greek life on Northwestern's campus, in addition to the fact that even though it's something that a lot of people are involved in, it's not the only thing people are involved in, is the fact that there's also like a wide variety of your options if you did want to get involved. So there's like the Pan-Hellenic Association, there's the National Pan-Hellenic Council, there's multicultural Greek life, and there's also kind of like the academic Greek councils, like the honors councils and like those kinds of things. And so there's a wide variety of the types of things you can get involved in as well. And even kind of like backtracking a little bit to the community service question. I know a lot of Greek life chapters put on different community service events that people who aren't even a part of those organizations can participate in. Like I know there's this organization called Delta Sigma Theta, and they put together like care packages, and they invited other students who wanted to help just make the packages to do those kinds of things. So it's a way to get involved, even in ways where if you're not exactly like a part of the organization, you can kind of help out with any of the initiatives or something that they might be doing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to switch gears now towards study abroad opportunities. And I'm going to ask Janea if she can talk about her experience with the Medill DC program, kind of explain what it is. And, did you enjoy the program? Just talk us through that.
Yeah, so this past winter, I was in Washington, D.C. for the Medill on the Hill program, which is a political reporting program. And so I spent the entire quarter living in D.C. and working in D.C. I spent 3 days a week as a real-time reporter. And so I would go out into D.C. and I spent a lot of time to Senate committee meetings or different sort of meetings and that sort of things, a lot of hearings. I had the chance to go to the impeachment trial and sit in and hear the House manager's arguments, which was super cool. And at that same time, you get to see a lot of the congressmen that you see on TV. And so I remember like there's like a pit in the basement of the Senate building, and a lot of different politicians would come out and speak to us while the impeachment trial was going on. So it makes the government and politics seem a lot more accessible than it really is. And I think it's a really great opportunity. And you get the chance to kind of delve into issues that you've heard about or thought about before. And this is an opportunity to kind of work on like longer pieces and definitely produce the sort of media that that you're more interested in. So a couple people that I worked with in DC did video, a couple other people did a couple like podcasts, a lot of stories. And so the Medill program in DC was a really great opportunity to kind of explore different media types, but also to, you know, just to learn more about DC. It was a great learning experience. And we also had 2 classes. We had a journalism class and a political science class. So you do get credit for this, which is really great. So I got to fill up some journalism credits and some distro credits while I was away in DC. And you also get the chance to meet a lot of Medill alums. And yeah, it was a really, really great experience. And I learned a lot that I'm still like using today in my classes and other internships that I'm involved in.
Sounds like an amazing opportunity. And I know John has some study abroad experience as well. So I was wondering if he can share his experience with everybody.
Yeah, sure. I was fortunate enough to be able to study abroad last summer at the London School of Economics in London in England. I was there for 6 weeks. I took 2 classes. It was super awesome. If you're worried you won't be able to study abroad during the year, maybe because you're doing 2 majors or you have a rigorous program with a lot of sequenced courses, summer study abroad is always there. Super convenient. I was able to knock out 2 of my minor classes in the summer and got to explore a little bit of Europe while I was at it. The study abroad office was super awesome and super helpful in helping me plan it, because it's something I really wanted to do when I came to college, was study abroad. And with engineering, it can be a little difficult to fit it in, especially because there are a lot of classes that you have to take, one in the fall, then one in the winter, then one in the spring, kind of in a row. So the study abroad office was super helpful. I was able to go do that for 6 weeks. The GPA didn't transfer back, so classes were, while they were still interesting and fun, I didn't necessarily have to try quite as hard as I would have at Northwestern. A great program, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask Cameryn, you know, what is something that Northwestern students, what's one of their favorite things to do that is specifically unique to Northwestern? And then once you're done, I'm going to ask Diana the same question. Love to get some, you know, different opinions and different perspectives on this question.
Yeah, I think some of the unique things that Northwestern students like to do will often be correlated with the unique traditions that kind of exist at Northwestern. And so I know one thing, for example, I guess maybe like is a strong word, but it's something that a lot of students do. It's called like the Primal Scream. And it's like, I think it's like the Sunday before finals week at like either like 9 p.m. or like 8 p.m., something like that. But pretty much almost every student on campus just kind of like screams for a minute. And it's supposed to be some sort of like release. And it's a little weird, but it is very unique to Northwestern. It is something that a lot of students do. And it kind of weirdly makes you feel that sense of community, especially in like potentially a stressful time academically for a lot of students. And then I also think something that's really unique to Northwestern is something that we have in the spring called Dillo Day, which is like a student-led music festival, and it's also the largest in the nation. We get like really famous as well as like up-and-coming artists to come out. There's a lot of like, there's a large stage, smaller stages, those kinds of things. And it's free for Northwestern students. And so this is something that students really look forward to and really enjoy taking part in when like the spring comes. So yeah.
I was going to talk about Dillo Day because it's my favorite day of the year. But John and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but Wildcat Welcome, it is kind of like a very organized program that students experience every year. But one of the great things about Wildcat Welcome every year is that we do something called the Wildcat Dash. So I personally am not an athletic person, so and I don't love football. So one of the things that I had never done before is go on a football field. So the Wildcat Dash is when all 2,000 plus new first year students to Northwestern, you get to like literally dash across the football field before one of the first games of the season. So it's been something really special that I've been able to like kind of reference and think about my time at Northwestern. Another thing that I really like to do that I really like to have done during my time at Northwestern is something called March to the Arch. So this also happens during Wildcat Welcome. So all 2,000 plus students and their parents and families. It'll look a little bit different this year, but all 2,000 plus students literally walk through the Northwestern Arch that is on our campus. And it kind of commemorates that time, that kind of entrance to college, and kind of commemorates the fact that you're at Northwestern, and this is your home. And then just something a little bit less organized is just hanging out at the lake field. Not a lot of schools can say that they have like a body of water next to them. So it's something that is really unique to Northwestern, and on a nice sunny day, you can find the lake field packed with students just enjoying the sun.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me throw that question to Janea and John as well. What is your some things, Northwestern students love to do that's unique to Northwestern? Let's have Janea go first.
Well, something that I think like is really unique to Northwestern is painting the rock. And so the rock is like this, it's literally just a giant rock in the middle of campus. And it was a water fountain that was a gift from a senior class years and years ago. But one year the rock froze over, or the water fountain froze over, and it became the rock. And so many times throughout the year, groups and clubs will paint the rock with whatever like event that they're hosting or whatever like cause they're supporting. And I think it's just like something that's really great. And I've been able to do it twice so far. And so to be able to paint the rock, you have to camp outside for 24 hours. And so a lot of times someone will paint the rock and it'll be repainted the next day, or you'll start painting the rock and people will come to camp out. But it's a really cool experience, and you paint the rock in the middle of the night and you get to hang out with people from whatever club or organization you're painting the rock with. And it's just like something that's super fun to do.
I'm going to go along something in the lines of that Kevin said way at the start of this call, if anyone still remembers. And he said Evanston's kind of, you get the twofold of a great college town and access to a wonderful big city in Chicago. You get to hang out in kind of quiet coffee shops in Evanston, little restaurants like Dave's New Kitchen, which is a wonderful little Italian restaurant on Noyes Street. Or if you're interested, you can go down to Chicago, see the Cubs play at Northwestern Day at Wrigley Field for like $5. If you're lucky, like class of 2021 was, you get to see Hamilton for free. Kind of having that access to a wonderful, huge world-class city and a great college town is something that I think is super unique to Northwestern, something students really take advantage of.
Awesome. Those sound really great traditions and opportunities on campus. So as we're wrapping up, I'm going to ask everybody one final question, and it's something you've answered before, may have been 2, 3, or 4 years ago, and it's simply why Northwestern? So for those of prospective students watching that don't know, as part of the application process, Northwestern has a supplemental essay that basically boils down to 2 words, and it's simply why Northwestern? So I'm going to throw it to our student panelists and kind of get their experience of why they chose Northwestern and, why they are happy with their decision. And so I'm going to start off with Cameryn.
So I honestly don't remember what I actually wrote for my essay, but I do remember what I was thinking when I applied to Northwestern. And so I actually applied to Northwestern through QuestBridge, which is an organization that basically allows low-income and/or first-generation students to have an opportunity to apply to prestigious colleges. And if they get accepted, they get a full 4-year scholarship to that school. And so it gives students like an opportunity to have opportunities, basically. And so I don't really know how, but I actually had never heard of Northwestern until I started applying for colleges. And it was actually recommended that I look into Northwestern by my cross-country coach at the time, because he had a lot of ties to the Chicago area and those kinds of things. And so when I started looking into Northwestern, and I realized how good of a school it was, and I also realized how kind of like holistic the experience seemed it would be at Northwestern. That's one of the things that really made me interested in putting it on my list of colleges that I wanted to like consider me. Because I know one of the things that was really important for me was not only a school that was academically competitive and had the resources to kind of support me in whatever way I needed, but also a college that would give me like the quintessential like sports experience and like social experience and those kinds of things. And from what I was getting online and those kinds of things, Northwestern seemed like the perfect school for that. And I actually never got an opportunity to tour Northwestern. So I just applied and they accepted me. So my first time on campus was when I started moving in, but I literally remember getting out of the Uber with my luggage with my mom. And I pulled up in front of Sargent Hall and I was just looking around at everybody and I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to throw it over to Diana, see what she says.
Jumping off of Cameron's point, the why Northwestern for me, and now that we've graduated, I've had a lot of time to kind of do a lot of reflecting. And the biggest thing for me about why Northwestern, and if I were to apply again, my answer would be because Northwestern like literally has felt like home. And so one of the greatest things that I like have been thinking about like after graduation has happened and like thinking about my time senior year is how much I'll miss the people at Northwestern. Like you can find great academics anywhere you go. You can find great support in administrators wherever you go, but the people at Northwestern is what really makes a difference. And like a Northwestern student is like no other college student that you'll find, and anyone else that you talk to will tell you that like people at Northwestern are super, super nice. And that's like not just something that is like a euphemism. Like Northwestern students are genuinely one of the nicest people that I've met, and anyone who you meet is like automatically a friend. And also the size of Northwestern was one of the biggest things that convinced me to apply early decision, because it is small enough where you can see somebody down our main road, Sheridan Road, and say hi because you recognize them from somewhere, but also big enough that you can meet somebody new every day. And I will pass it to Janea.
For me, one of the reasons I applied to Northwestern was the flexibility of our academics, which everyone here has talked about already. But like I said before, I was really dead set on like double majoring and like having a plan. And I knew Northwestern, like on the quarter system, would allow me to be able to double major without having to do a 5th year of undergrad. And that was something that I was really excited about, because I could double major and still study abroad and do other things as well. I don't know if I'm going to double major as of now, but I do appreciate the flexibility, because I am still able to have the room in my schedule to study abroad and do things like the Medill on the Hill program, and just having not to always overload myself with classes and having the opportunity to take maybe 3 classes instead of like 4, which students typically take. And so I think the flexibility that Northwestern academics has allowed me to not be as stressed as I could be, and also has allowed me to definitely explore more disciplines and to really like dive into my interests more. Yeah. And if John wants to hop on.
I don't think I could name a reason that hasn't already been said. They put it super well. For me, it was kind of a combo of everything Janea, Cameron, and Diana all said. There was access to a world-class education and phenomenal research while still being able to go to Big Ten sporting events for free. Northwestern went to the Big Ten championship game a couple years ago and bused every student who wanted to go completely for free. They used all the Greyhound buses in the Chicagoland area, and like 4,600 students went. It was absolutely incredible. We played well for one of the quarters. It was fun. So Northwestern just kind of combines everything I think I was looking for in a school. It was the right size, not too big, not too small. For me, it was close to home, which I think was something I was nervous about, but ended up being one of the main reasons why I think I love it now. Because I can see my family if I want to, but if I want to ignore them for a week or 2 because I'm mad, I can. And it's just far enough away where they have to like let me know if they're coming to campus. Otherwise, they won't. They might not see me. Northwestern just combines so many great things, so many great people, great programs, great supports. It's just a great place to be.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. I want to extend this thanks to our student panelists for taking the time out of their busy day to talk about their Northwestern experience. This was very great, very insightful. So if anybody has any additional questions about Northwestern, about the admissions process, financial aid, things like that, feel free to reach out to our admissions office. We can be reached at email at ug-admission.northwestern.edu. Let me say that again. So it's going to be ug-northwestern, or I'm sorry, strike that again, ug-admission@northwestern.edu. I'm going to say that one more time, ug-admission@northwestern.edu. And one of our lovely student panelists can answer a question, or other students who are working in the office can help you out with anything you may have, any questions regarding academics, student life, financial aid, in the admissions process as well. We'd be more than happy to help. But once again, thank you for joining us today. We really hope Northwestern is the school for you. And as always, go Cats.